Being city kids from the East, it was an amazing day at Dugway Proving Grounds UT when the tumbleweeds, parched, dry, and brittle from weeks in the hot, dry desert air, broke off in a strong wind and started their roll across the desert. They stacked up in drifts against our concrete block, fourplex military housing situated on the last street of the housing area. The open range was our backyard. Our black lab Zeke lay in the door of his doghouse, head on his paws, watching these strange orbs roll by like waves on the ocean heading toward the shore. They were all sizes, much larger than we'd ever expected, and were bleached almost colorless. They must all simultaneously reach the sufficient stage of dryness, and when the first wind comes by, the stems snap and they are all often tumbling together. Who knew they all tumble on the same day? There wasn't much to do on this remote and isolated military post in the middle of the Great Salt Lake Desert, 40 miles from the nearest town called Tooele. For something to do, a sergeant on post sold us a horse in which his teenage daughter had lost interest. We named her Thunderbell, though I can't say why now. She was a bargain horse, even if she was a swayback. We only paid the back stable bill, less than $100 for the purchase, including the dandy horse and all the necessary accoutrements, including saddle and bridle. It cost $10 per month to keep her at the stable on post. Marty and Clay, our friends from Texas, had horses and taught us what to do and how to take care of her. Thunderbell was a good, relatively easily controlled horse for beginners to ride. Well, there was that first ride we took. We didn't know you had to tie the darn horse up when you got off. We took a ride, both of us on our old sway back, out into the desert near the stable. We got off to rest, but we didn't tie her up. And what do you think she did? She took off at a trot, directly back to the stable, leaving us behind. I'm sure she lived at Dugway forever and knew just where she was going. We had to walk back, no doubt hoping not to be observed by any of the more experienced horse people at the stable. She was waiting by her corral when we got there. The first time Rick took her out for a fast ride on the desert, he came upon an arroyo, a dry creek bed. Not knowing if she would jump or balk, he held on and hoped for the best. She jumped, sailed right over, and kept going. This was especially significant since she was not a spring chick. Thunderbell was a good old horse, the operative word there being old. There was an old guy on post, a civilian resident named Darrell, rhymes with Harold. He did horseshoeing and had probably lived on Dugway a long time. Dugway was a unique community enshrouded in a lot of secrecy due to the military mission there to test agents of chemical and biological warfare. Not that we knew any of the secrets, of course. Even though it is a military installation, there was a small group of people, civilian employees, who'd lived there for years, raised their kids there, and now their grown kids live there too. This was a post with just a few hundred military personnel and a few hundred mad scientist types who worked on whatever secret squirrel nerve gas testing stuff they did at Dugway on the 798,000 acres that make up that military reservation. Anyway, I digress. We asked Darrell, "How old do you think she is?" He took a look in her mouth, thought for a moment, and then said, "Well, I can tell you, she's old enough to vote." We were fond of our horse, though, even if she was an old swayback nag, bless her heart. She didn't look too swaybacked, though, with her saddle on. Now, in the corral next to ours at the stable was a fine young horse. Tequila was a stunning chestnut Appaloosa stallion with a blanket of white spots splashed across his rump. I have a snapshot memory from November 1st, 1976, when I went to the stable to ride Thunderbell. Even the date has remained embedded in my memory because it was one of those cloudless, brilliant, sparkling, blue-skied days when the air was not even noticeable, so perfect was the temperature. It was the kind of day that makes you feel that life is perfect. Tequila's owner was a cowboy named Tex. He worked a civilian job on post, and his wife was there riding Tequila that day, and he pranced around strong and in high spirits. I knew I could never handle a horse like that. Tex drove a black pickup truck and always had a bottle of black velvet whiskey under the seat. On Tumbleweed Day, when we arrived at the stable, poor old Thunderbell was pinned in one small spot in her corral up to her shoulders in tumbleweeds that had blown in and been trapped by the fence. Rick had no idea how to dispose of them, especially since there was a strict no-burn policy on the military post. Unable, though, to come up with any other disposal plan, he decided to burn them just a few at a time in a small, controlled fire. About that time, Tex roared up in his pickup truck and observed the dilemma. "Heck, that's not the way to get rid of 'em. Let me show you." With that, he took a long draw off the black velvet whiskey, grabbed his pitchfork from the back of his truck, and started putting large forkfuls of tinder dry tumbleweeds on the fire as fast as he could. In no time, flames shot up as high as a house as the dried weeds ignited like a Christmas tree on fire and were quickly consumed. The MPs will see smoke from a small fire. The trick is to burn them fast with no smoke. There was no smoke from this fire. The whole corral was cleared in minutes. Thunderbell was saved from her tumbleweed plight, and the MPs were never the wiser, thanks to our cowboy friend Tex.